Hello, everyone. I'm Joanna De Ninis, and this is Truth Talk for May 6th, 2026. The topic for today is self-love. So, what I didn't know, and I think most people don't know, is that when you pour into yourself, meaning that if you're going through a tough time and you turn inward, meaning you search for that inner strength, you nurture yourself, you take care of yourself, things that maybe you wouldn't do for yourself, you start to do. Um, for me, when I started to on my quest to get healthy, um, mind, body, soul, right? I, it took a while for me to even get to the point of realizing that I need to pour into myself. I need to, do stuff that's gonna be for my benefit, to slow down, to, put myself first, right? Took a while to get to that point. But when you do that, you pour into yourself, you do the work, the healing work that you need, you become a more complete whole person. You start to get clarity as to what you will accept and what you will not accept. Not just, things or situations in life, but people too, like who you will allow in your circle, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's family or friends or, even family, even though you're blood related, if family's not respecting you or they're disrespecting you or, they're just not good energy to be around, you don't have to allow them in. Because when you really pour into yourself, you realize that if it doesn't jive with your energy, if it doesn't match your frequency, and you're at an elevated state because you poured into yourself and you loved yourself and you did what you needed to do to heal, we call it doing the work, you then realize there's no room for anyone in your energy like that. That's not respectful or, rude or has lower vibrational energy. It's just going to tear you down. So so that's what happens. But like I said, what unfortunately, as a result, right, people that you used to allow to yourself to be around, they're no longer there. So your circle of family and friends gets smaller and it makes you feel at times alone. You feel lonely, like you're on top of the mountain and you're like, hey, there's nobody else here. And you're kind of looking down at not not meaning to look down at people, I'm saying, but you're just kind of looking from a bird's eye view and you're like, what happened? Where is everybody? Right? Because you're in another place, you're at a higher frequency. But then something happens when you're at that point, you're at a higher vibration because you did the work and you care about yourself, there's self-love, there's self-respect. You start calling in like-minded people, people that are on the same frequency as you are. And people that they may not be your close friends and family, but they then become your soul tribe because they may not be like you, they might be completely totally different, but at a soul level you can relate, you're at the same frequency. You might be different but you're still at the same higher vibration. so so in that respect you're not as alone as you thought you were, right? Life looks a little different and it's good. Like I said, it's an adjustment though. I mean, I can speak for myself and say that who I am today, I was not a year ago. And sometimes I feel like I'm in this in between world because I still remember what I was like, but yet I'm not like that anymore. And, my world is changing. Who's around me is changing, or who's left in my circle has changed. And so you're looking at life through a different lens. and a lot of it's good, but there's some, times when I look back and go, wow, you know, never thought I'd be here, and I kind of miss some aspects of, what my old life was like, but it's like starting new, starting on a new journey. It's like when we were in school and we left one school to go to middle school, we left elementary to go to middle, and then middle to go to high school, and then high school to go to college. It's kind of like that. You kind of are at the next level at that point. And even though things are different and you're not familiar and they're new, it's still you. It's just on a different path or a different place in life. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the hard part is when you pour into yourself and you have self-love and self-respect, you become a complete whole individual, but you also lose people at the same time, but then you gain them. So it's kind of like you're just, I don't know, it's kind of like a snake sheds its skin. You're just kind of shedding your skin and then evolving into something different. And, as a result, you're connecting with different people, on a different journey than what you might have started out thinking you were on. So it's a little bit of, it's a little awkward feeling, but it can also be exciting, and this is the opportunity to explore yourself and explore your inner child and who you really are, what your likes and dislikes are, and no more settling or tolerating. I think that's the big word. No more tolerating behaviors or what you didn't like or what you didn't care for, the disrespect that you no longer will tolerate. It's just a different world, and when you get to that place of being around the people that are like you in a higher frequency, it's nice. It feels like you're home again, and everything you went through, didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And who you are today is a heck of a lot stronger than what you were years ago. So there's something to be said about that evolution, that evolutionary process when you do the work and you pour into yourself and you develop that self-love and self-respect that you deserve, that had perhaps was ignored for quite some time. It should never have been, but this is what happens, right? We don't enter this world knowing everything. We're learning. No one's perfect. We're still learning, we're still evolving, we're still growing, and it's a good thing. So, anyways, that's about it for tonight. I have a little bit of a cold, but trying to build that immune system so I don't get very sick. But anyways, I I wish all of you well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy to do the work and to change and to evolve and grow. It can be difficult. I'm not going to lie. It can be difficult, but it's like the butterfly, in the cocoon or the chrysalis that then, it's like there's a time that has to be put in, an amount of time, and it can almost probably feel like an eternity that you're in this cocoon, or whatever this chrysalis is, right? But then, you kind of break free, and it may not happen overnight, but you break free and you transform into something definitely different than what you were. And it's kind of like what happened to me. And like I said, a lot of people out there have experienced the same. There's a little bit of uncomfortableness. It's a little bit of, being out of your environment, but you then evolve into the new you. And it's pretty powerful. It really is. It's pretty powerful. So anyways, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Everybody has the power within. Say that all the time. We are our own heroes. We can be our worst enemies, obviously, if we're on the other side of the equation, if we don't do the work, right? There are people out there that refuse to, they're stuck in their ego and they don't think they need to do any work. And that's their choice. They certainly have that free will choice, but they're not going to do the evolving and the growing. And 9 out of 10, they're probably hurting a lot of people in their wake. So, but that's their choice. And when the people around them really start to evolve and then no longer tolerate their behavior, they will be all alone by default. So, but that'll be something they'll have to contend with, right? That's something they'll have to deal with at that time. So, anyways, I wish everybody luck. Life sometimes, it can be challenging, it can be difficult, but there's also the bright side of things. Once you do that growing and that learning, it's like a whole new world. Like I said, with infinite possibilities, your whole outlook on life changes for the better, right? You start to see things and potential that you never could see because you were living in a small world with a limited mindset, limited beliefs. But once you break free and you become a self-sufficient, self-reliant, confident person, who really knows who they are, and knows what they want and what they will allow and what they won't allow. It's pretty powerful, pretty powerful. And it doesn't have to be a loud, powerful. It can just be a quiet strength, a quiet, sense of power, nothing arrogant, just assertive, confident, but powerful. It's like I said, that quiet strength that people may not detect, but it's there, you know. That's I think that's the best kind of strength, right? The one that doesn't bully and hurt, but stands firm and says, these are my boundaries and you can either respect them or not. But if you don't, then you don't need to be in my world or my space. So that's pretty powerful in and of itself. So, anyways, if I'm doing these podcasts every day because I'm trying to grow my channel for the Reach Integrative Healthcare Cause. If you go to www.reach.group, GROUP, you can join the Reach Facebook group, which is a support platform, people helping people. On the website, you can also join the YouTube channel for Reach, which has other videos like this. And on the website, you can also um, purchase Reach merchandise, which would help market the integrative health care cause and Reach. And you can also donate to the cause if you have resources to do so. If you don't, that's okay. But there's a donate now button on the homepage. And then, of course, on the causes page, you can donate there. And when you're on the website, there will be contact forms that pop up. This is so that we can stay connected. I promise I will not sell your information. If you just please fill out all fields, that information gets integrated into MailChimp. And then the idea is to send out like a monthly newsletter. I promise I won't, bombard you with emails. I won't solicit for donations. I'll just ask, on these videos if there's anyone interested in donating. I'll be, writing or applying for grants and asking for corporate donations, individual donations on the website. But that's the plan to fund the cause. So for those that you don't know, the integrative healthcare cause we're going to work alongside Western medicine, and we're going to raise funds and pay for alternative treatment to help those who have chronic health challenges. We're going to help them overcome them by paying for alternative care, Eastern medicine practices, everything to heal the mind, body, and the soul. So that's the goal. And it's pretty neat. I mean, we'll help everyone, but we're going to pay for treatments for those that earn less than 100,000 on their taxes, whether they're filing single or joint tax returns. So that's the plan. And then eventually we'll fund other causes, but right now the integrative healthcare cause is the main focus, and it is a big one. So plan is to start in Arizona and then grow nationally and perhaps beyond. So the dream is big, and but it's definitely doable. So that's it. I'm gonna call it a night so I can get some rest, get over this cold. And that's it. I hope you have a good night. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Anything you can do to help grow this channel, I really appreciate it. Okay. Thanks again. Good night.